I, 26 male, think my wife, 25 female, is cheating on me with her cousin. Alright, it's a long one, so bear with me. This situation happened about 2 weeks ago, and I've gone from fully trusting her to deeply doubting her. My wife and I met when I was 19, and we fell in love quite quickly. She had a 4-month-old child from a previous relationship. That father hasn't been in the picture since I've known her. Ever since I was a kid I wanted to be a father, but I have a genetic disorder I don't wish to pass on, so adoption was just great with me. Anyhow, we've been just like your normal family every day since then. We got married last year. She was never super close with her family, but she did have a pair of cousins she was always kind of close to, and I had lots of fun getting to know them, and they seemed like decent people. She did mention that one of them, Max, we'll call him, had, when they were like 12 and 13, tried to kiss her, but she ran off. I asked her if she ever told anyone, and she said she chalked it up to him being a stupid kid. We see him at Christmas every year, and he seems like a normal dude. I liked him as her family is a bunch of stuffed shirts and he's down to earth. Recently they've reconnected and gone to a few family functions. We own one car, and since I needed it for work he picked her up and drove her to these things. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary about this. They are cousins after all. Her behavior really didn't make any obvious changes. However, randomly as I was watching TV one night she came in and mentioned that I had friended a girl from my place of work. I accepted a friend request. We are a pretty open couple and things don't usually offend us. For instance, she'll remark on an attractive guy and make some sort of lewd remark, and I think nothing of telling her this woman was the new office. She didn't accuse me of cheating, but it felt like she was about to, which has never happened before. The reason I mentioned this is because I've read cheater accuse their partner as a projection or something. Anyway, these family outings were legit. The whole family posts pics on them on Facebook and the wife sends pics from the outings. There were 2 of these events and each time wife came home and was like a robot. Lovemaking seemed normal, if not quieter than usual, but as she suffers from depression she often gets cold every so often. And when I asked her if she was doing alright she chalked it up to that. Well, 2 weeks ago she leaves for work, and as it was my day off I puttered around the house, dropped the boy off at school, and came home to check my email. On Facebook, I saw that I had a message from her cousin. He and I had recently discussed going out to see a farm team baseball game, and I thought he was getting back to me. The message reads, "I'd like to see you on your knees." I was confused as hell until I realized that my wife was still signed in, and it was her he was talking to. I wanted to kill him. I instantly rushed and read through their chat log and it's filled with him creeping on her, and while she is saying things like "but I'm married," and "no I'm married," these read like very thin O's, like she is saying no because she has to, not because she wants to. I'm disgusted and flawed about it. But since none of them mention anything happening yet and she is denying him, albeit kindly, I can't exactly say she's cheating. Well, when she gets home and our son is put to bed I confront her over the situation. She instantly breaks down into hysterics and tears, saying things like, "I didn't do anything. I didn't know how to tell you. I was just hoping he stopped." Now she and I both suffered childhood sexual abuse from family friends. We both went to years of therapy for it, and for that reason, we have very good communication skills when it comes to comfort and boundaries and how to express ourselves about unwanted advances. I love her, and I wanted to believe her, and that he was just being a creep, but the way she didn't tell me and acted seemingly normal leads me to believe something else was going on. I told her that I believed her and asked her if I could message him to tell him to back off and how disgusted I am that they are cousins, or if she would prefer to tell him and handle it herself. She first expressed that she would tell him that I knew and not to call her, but her resolve cracked as she was confident this would just stop. I was furious about that, but didn't express it, and told her that knowing she wasn't going to, I was going to give him a peace of mind. This is my wife. If she's being harassed I will end it, and if she's not being harassed she's cheating on me. So I messaged him. He saw it, but made no reply. The wife says I should have let her handle the situation, and I told her there was no way I was going to keep quiet in the face of this. She seemed to understand, and expressed in the end that I was probably right to confront him, because she didn't know how. All seemed to return to normal, but 3 days later I come home and she's crying. I ask her what's wrong, and she said it's, "Max, you should have let me handle it. I messaged him yesterday, and he won't talk to me." We had the conversation again about me not sitting idly by when somebody is harassing my wife. She gave me a look. It wasn't much, and it was only for a second, but it gave me the impression that she didn't consider it harassment. We end the discussion in agreement that I handled it how any man would handle it. 2 days later I'm coming to bed late like 2 AM as I was finishing up some work. I hear her on the phone with somebody kind of chuckling. This is not normal. Told me it was her mom and had something to do with our kid's birthday, which I didn't buy, but at this point, I've begun playing stupid so I can observe the situation from a place where she feels comfortable. The next day she is crying again, and at this point, I've had it. She's been unstable for 2 weeks now. When I ask her if this is about Max, again she says she tried to call and apologize for not handling the situation herself, and that he still isn't talking to her. I admit it, I snapped. I told her that either he was abusing her or she was cheating on me, and I caught them. Won the couch tonight obviously. I wanted to believe her, but I'm not a moron. I'm essentially laying here with my finger on the button waiting for some solid truth, because if this is what it's feeling more and more like, I'm about to go 95,000 megaton nuclear on the both of them. She goes to work in 6 hours. I will apologize for my outburst and ask her to sit down with me and talk tonight. It's Sunday and our son typically stays the night with my parents every other Sunday. I'm not proud of it, but I feel it's in my best interest to do a snooping. If I find nothing, we will discuss what happened when it started, what I can do to help her, and what we ought to do moving forward. I love her, and the idea that she is being harassed by somebody who is supposed to love her breaks my heart. However, if I do find something sordid, or learn that she was complicit in any way, I'm done with the relationship that instance. I don't believe in marriage counseling in instances of infidelity, and even if I did insist, there is no way I could look at her the same again. Small update: so I didn't sleep at all last night, and when she woke up I made breakfast. I told her I shouldn't have blown up, and that we should probably sit down tonight and talk about things. She agreed like she wasn't even upset to begin with, and said she knew she had probably been acting badly. I told her that the sort of harassment she was dealing with was infinitely more difficult because he is a member of the family. She just seemed to agree with me. I wasn't going to snoop, but so many people on here told me I ought to, and not wanting to be accused of not taking the advice I asked for, I decided to go through with and check her emails. With the way she was acting this morning, I had fewer reasons to be suspicious, but at this point what the heck, and did just that. The level of disgust, hatred, and anger I feel cannot be expressed right, and there will be a divorce. There was one email entitled Yummy, and upon opening it, I found a picture of her cousin with semen on his face. The back and forth saw him describing to her his encounters with random gay men. They make reference to past sexual encounters they've had together, complete with one picture of a strap-on dildo captioned "I still have our old friend." Then I read some disgusting filth talk between them where she is behaving in a very dominating way and insulting his member's size. Looking at the dates I realize that this was from a year ago. As I continue to read I'm able to figure out, at least from how it reads, that they used to hook up frequently but stopped after we got married. We were together for several years before we got married. Later she starts using the "I'm married" excuse, but it's reading like that's just a kink of his, to be told he can't touch her anymore, which he probably does. I'm raising her kid and she does this to me. I've wasted the last 6 years changing my work schedule and not taking better paying jobs because I need hours where I'm able to watch him. I went outside and sat on the front porch, called my brother over, and after explaining to him the entire situation asked him to take my gun from me for the time being. I'm not a violent person, I never have been, but in the state I'm in now I'm fluctuating between wanting to kill him and wanting to kill myself. I'm not going to, but I feel like I'm headed for a breakdown and I can't trust I'll behave rationally. After this, I'm packing up my clothes and checking into a hotel. These conversations have all been printed. I've sent copies to myself, and when I have time I'm digging for more dirt. Bought a pack of cigarettes, stopped smoking 4 years ago. and the joy I have to make an appointment at some STD clinic, because according to these vile back and forths, a part of his thing is having unprotected lovemaking with these men. My soon-to-be ex-wife has a device, and as such I've never once in all these years worn protection with her. So now I have months of biting my nails to look forward to, as I understand AIDS tests take months. I know his work schedule roughly because I used to work for the same company he does, so maybe before checking in and composing myself I'm just going to drive down to see his wife, evidence in hand. There's no fixing this. There's no therapy, no hope, nothing positive, and I don't care to even entertain an apology. I'm divorcing the witch, and she will get nothing. I hate life right now. I don't feel depressed or sad. I haven't cried. I just have this hot ball of rage in my chest that the cigarettes are only briefly cool. I can't be near her or him. I know I said I'm not violent, but man, I really want to beat the piss out of both of them. Update: I, 26 male, think my wife, 25 female, is cheating on me with her cousin. The last couple of days have been a regular roller coaster for me. Okay, I went to a lawyer initially, and after that, I went straight to Max's home where I spoke with his wife. She was broken-hearted as one might expect, and disgusted over the incest. We sat down for a bit, and I told her also that he was bragging to my wife about how he was having unprotected lovemaking with random internet men, and that there were pictures with him with semen on his face that he was sending my wife. She insisted on seeing them despite my advice not to, and she was broken. He was bisexual and was always found to be chatting up random guys. She said she allowed him to go out every so often and see a man if he felt he had to get it out of his system, as she put it. She was under the impression that he hadn't done this in well over a year. When this was over, I stayed the night in a hotel, where I still am, and talked with my mother, brother, and father. My mother-in-law called me begging me to come and talk about this, that I must have made some mistake. It's all voicemail, I never picked it up. My wife tried calling me a dozen or so times. I didn't answer. She sent no texts. I assume she knows I've been documenting things and doesn't want to give me any more ammo. It's what I would do in her place. At the end of the day, I called her and kept it brief, saying I would talk to her the next day. When I eventually came home, she was a wobbling mess. She tried to hug me, and I told her that's over. She insisted she never cheated on me, that I must have taken something the wrong way, and that Max's wife must be spreading these rumors because they hate each other. It is at this point that I realize that my wife thinks I heard about this from someone else. She doesn't know I discovered their affair myself. It's then that I show her the papers. I have the pics of him with semen on his face, titled Yummy, the picture of a huge strap-on dildo titled Our Old Friend, her speaking to him as if she is some dominatrix type, saying how he has a small member and real power play type stuff. At points, she was telling him to send the pics of himself after these men were done with him. Real stomach churning crap. I'm not a prude either. I engage in a lot of really kinky crap, so it's not like she's dealing with an uptight hubby who isn't open sexually and went out for those reasons. But anyway, as soon as she realizes that it was me who discovered this and told Max's wife, she goes from being weepy and sad to explosively angry, complete hysterics. You should have talked to me first. She's all over everything, telling everyone, this is going to ruin me. You knew she would do this. I told him to stop texting me like that. At that last statement, I exploded. I told her that I just got done reading a year's worth texts and emails, and not once did she ever tell him to stop. I called her a degenerate, said that we both probably have AIDS now, and she crumpled in on herself. Couldn't respond, just crying hard. Even still, I told her that we were getting divorced. I then called her father and told him to come to my house because she really shouldn't be alone in that state. I returned to my hotel room and saw that Max's wife had been texting me. She had done some intense digging on her own and found discussions about sexual encounters they had from 2010 on MySpace. She told me early on in our relationship that he once tried to kiss her at 13. Well, they were actually making love at 16 or 15, or during a time where MySpace was still widely being used. I'll admit it, this seeing it went on that far back was finally what broke me. I'm not big on emotional displays, but I broke down crying in front of his wife. She cried too. When that was over, I took her to the lawyer I'm seeing, and now one of his partners will be handling her divorce. Through all this, Max has been panicking and crying, trying to find out where his wife is, trying to talk to me, still after all this evidence, trying to ensure this is all some big misunderstanding. It turns out that Max and ex-wife live in a house owned by Max's parents, and they have come down hard against their son, telling him he cannot stay there anymore, and apologizing to their daughter-in-law, and saying she's welcome to stay with their grandchild in that house for as long as she wants. He's basically disowned. Max's father even got it in his head somehow that Max was molesting my wife as a child, and that is why she is doing what she is doing today. She is his favorite niece, basically a second daughter, so Max, in effect, is on the lam because his old man wants him dead. My father, unprompted and wanting to help me, assured me he'd pay my hotel for the week. Today I told my boss point blank, no filter, exactly what's happened, and that I'm taking 2 weeks to sort my life out. He remarked about how crappy his divorce was and told me to take whatever time I needed bottle fed, and that he'll just tell everyone on the floor I've got a sick parent or something, which was sweet of him. Lying down in my hotel room now, missing a stepson I'll probably never see again. I raised him for 6 years, changed his diapers, bottle fed him at 3 AM, took time out of work when he was sick, waited on him hand and foot after a nasty fall that broke his arm, so his mother could sleep because she was working in the morning. The rest of this world could burn away to ash, and I wouldn't blink or care, but the thought of never seeing him again rips away at me like nothing else. I need therapy. Gonna take a hell of a lot of talking to get through this. I'm not a suicide risk, so no worries there. I'm an atheist, so this is the only life I got. If I end it, that's it, lol. Talking to my lawyer on the phone later, and we'll be meeting up with Max's significant other again, because apparently there's more I don't know. Got a doctor's appointment tomorrow, and then 6 damn months of waiting for results. Update 2. I, 26 male, think my wife, 25 female, is cheating on me with her cousin. Okay, well, a bunch has happened since the day or 2 days since my last update. First, the good news. I got my HIV rapid test, and it came back negative. Thought it would take days or months, but literally learned in the same visit. I'm going to get tested again obviously in the next few months, and for now, I'm going to live my life as if I do have it, just to be extra careful. Max's wife, who I'll be calling Sherry from now on, accompanied me for support. Her appointment is in 2 days. Well, I had the first long sit down with the soon-to-be ex-wife. We had an understandably explosive sit down earlier in the week, and we'd talked sparsely in between. I left this out, but I've been calling her at my son's bedtime to say goodnight to him. At the moment he is under the impression that I'm just working a lot, planning on telling him the truth in the following days, or truth good enough for a 6-year-old. Reconciliation was never on the table. She knew this and didn't try to push it, which I was thankful for. Her reasons shouldn't concern me, they can't benefit me in any way, but giving myself to emotions for the moment, I asked her to be truthful and tell me how long it's been going on and why, or if I did something that would push her to this. She looks like she's been crying on and off, but she was fairly calm in talking with me about it, and by how candid she was I can tell it's probably the truth, and she's somewhat relieved to be talking about it in a weird and messed up way. Long story short, she's the instigator. She didn't say as much, but she's in love with him, and they aren't together because obviously. I'm learning now that I'm the equivalent of one of those sham wives that gay men would marry so they could seem normal. That's pretty crushing. She insists she loved and loves me, but I don't believe it, nor does it matter anymore. My life for the past 6 years was a lie, probably just a cover for this bullshit. I don't know if I even know what real love, romantic love looks like, and that's got me more than a little messed up. She looked hurt seeing me hurt, but I don't know if it was real. Not that it matters anyway. The important thing we discussed was my stepson and what we will do moving forward. Before I could say anything, she told me she wouldn't oppose something like weekend custody and would sign that in the divorce. Point, I honestly think she is extremely remorseful about how this affects him. A lot of telling me I'm his father, his only dad, and taking me away from him would be so damaging. We are going to tell him the bad news in a few days. Tomorrow or today, I'll be taking him to the zoo. I was thinking of telling him after that, but he loves this zoo, and I really don't want him thinking of his parents' divorce every time he sees it. It's tearing me up having to think of a way best to scar my child for life. I'm thinking about how to make it positive, like telling him how in my new apartment he'll have a new room and he can paint it how he wants, and help me get stuff for it. Make him feel like he and I are a team, like a way to make this terrible crap fun. We aren't wealthy, so basically we are just going to keep what we have in our already separate accounts, divide up the remainder of our utility bills in a fair way, and just get the divorce. We discussed meeting at the courthouse and having me file divorce right in front of her so she can be served that minute. I want it over as fast as possible, and seeing as she's giving me the only thing I want, refusing the idea of child support, you didn't make him, and you didn't do this to him. As much as I hate her right now, I'm impressed that she seems to at least want to make amends for this. Maybe she just wants weekends off to screw her cousin. But honestly, as long as I get to remain a dad, I might as well have one today. In other related news, yesterday, or 2 days ago, I went to visit Sherry, Max's soon-to-be ex, to see how she's holding up. When I arrived, Max's parents were there and were surprised to see me. I got a hug from my wife's aunt, and she was crying and apologizing so much it almost made me cry. She was under the impression that I was never going to see my son again, which really upset her, because, and I didn't know this, but she used to love watching me play with my son at family gatherings. Basically, they are going to continue to allow Sherry and the baby to stay in their second home for as long as they like. Under the circumstances, Max will not be allowed there anymore, and is basically disowned at this point. I'm not sure this was mentioned before, but the family seems to have gotten the idea that Max molested my wife, and that this is some kind of abuse or Stockholm syndrome, and call me a butthole, but for the sake of my son's stability I will do nothing to correct them. If letting them believe this allows my wife to live at home with her folks, and not having them fight over this in front of my boy, then I will omit this. Sherry is a mess as one would expect. She has moments of being okay followed by tears, followed by anger. The more she talks about subjects not related to this, the calmer she gets. Her family is going to be paying for her to see a therapist, and her brother is coming to the state for a week to be with her, and her mom is moving in with her for a month after that to try and help her cope. I got to feed her daughter today, such a cute kid, and melted away my anxiety for a little while. Last night my friends and I went to the movies and I asked her if she'd like to come along. I'm glad she came along, but I've also realized that I either need to put some distance between Sherry and me, or I need to talk with her about what I think is happening. Nothing has been said really, but she's casually touching me, which is something we never did before this. I had a tension headache and mentioned a knot in my neck, and unprompted she started rubbing my shoulders. Also unprompted, during my test when the doctor left the room she held my hand. It's probably all just me overthinking things due to my rejection, loneliness, and wanting to feel accepted, but I'm infatuated with her. Whenever I'm not obsessing over all the terrible things going on in my life, I find myself thinking of her in a romantic light, and while it's probably not healthy, feeling anything positive is preferable to feel nothing but misery and doubt. Again, maybe I'm reading too much into this, and I'm mistaking her emotional support as something more than it is, because my mind is messed, but she's acting toward me now how past girlfriends and even the ex-wife did before I officially started seeing them. I mentioned it in the comments that I was trying to lighten the mood with my dark humor, and said something like, I can't even go out and get revenge lay without the possibility of killing someone, referencing my HIV fears. And her response was to bring up the fact that if I'm infected, by default she is most likely infected too, and that since our partners were sleeping together, grossly it's like she and I were already making love. There were a few moments after that, and a look which I took to be an invitation, but I changed the subject. I should be thinking about more important things, but I'm getting distracted by this. Part of me, the smarter part, knows that a foundation like this is horrible, and acting on it might spell disaster for our upcoming divorces. On the other hand, I do have a real mental and physical attraction to this woman, one I'm 75% sure is mutual, and I fear that not acting will make her think I'm not open to this at any point, and she'll move on, and I'll lose another person who makes me happy. But huge digression aside, I still feel Like I'm on the verge of a nervous breakdown, but the divorce seems to be going in a favor of me. I will still be a dad. Oh, and where is Max in all of this? Nobody knows, but he was couch surfing the first 2 nights with friends out of state. He's called Sherry like 3 times since she went nuclear, but that's it. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, hit like, get subscribed, and give the OP any advice you have in the comment section, and support the original writers with upvotes. Links in the description box.